One. Hi, everybody. This is Saad for the Saad Truth. I believe that my current guest that you're seeing right now might be a three-peat on the Saad Truth. I'll have to go back to see whether... Laurence, can you confirm, is this your second or third appearance?
It is my third appearance. Anything else is mis or disinformation.
Zionist misinformation, I would
Zionist disinformation. Yes, exactly.
Well, you are now in a very, very elite group of people to be a three-peat, but it's never too soon to speak to you again, although I wish it were under better circumstances. This is, for those of you who don't know, Laurence Fox, who is a British actor, social commentator, journalist, and also the head of the Reclaim Party, so officially also a politician. Recently, he faced some very, very hot waters because he committed a linguistic genocide. And so maybe we can start with that story and then proceed to other lunacy that is engulfing us. Take it away.
Are we referring to the linguistic genocide being saying that I didn't want to have sex with someone? Would that be the
That's the one.
crime?
Or as the British so eloquently put it, I wouldn't shag her or something. You know, I think that word came into my mind when I was watching Austin Powers 20 plus years ago, you know, whatever he would use that term. But of course, it has re-entered the lexicon of the North American mind via your story. Tell us what happened.
So there was I think she's a journalist. I don't know what she is, a social commentator called Ava Evans, who is whose favorite word seemingly is shag, weirdly, because people have gone back through her tweets to find her saying the word shag more than anyone else. She belittled the idea of male mental health and the fact that the biggest killer of men under 50 in the UK is suicide. I was asked to go on GB News, which I used to be hired by to discuss it. And because of my personal experiences with male suicide, I was very annoyed. And I tried to make the point that any man who locked himself into a relationship with a 44th wave feminist like that was committing himself to a life of abject misery. And that came out, probably could have come out better. But GB News, a very organized pile-on was arranged, and Loza was hoofed from his job. Yeah.
And so I just last week, I had Calvin Robinson on the show, who very honorably and nobly came to your defense. And so he was fired by proxy because you're so toxic that anybody who comes out publicly in support of your position needs to also be guillotined.
Yes, I mean, I think his treatment should have been harder. Not only should he have been fired, but potentially killed.
Flogged.
Well, I mean, why stop at flogging?
So decapitation.
Full, the whole thing, hung, drawn, and quarters, like the good old days. Yeah, I mean, the great thing about situations like this is it always informs you of who the truly courageous honey badgers are. And Calvin Robinson is one. And you know, he has a lot to lose, you know. And this is a guy who's been cancelled from everything because he refuses to be what they call politically black. You know, he may be racially black, but he doesn't have the right politics for how black people should think. So he gets more abuse. I mean, I get a lot of abuse, but the abuse that Calvin gets, he gets the racism on top of the fact that he just refuses to think like an oppressed little minority that he's meant to behave like. He actually believes that his brain and his merit might get him somewhere. I mean, this is ridiculous. Why doesn't he just take...
I was going to say, it's disgusting that he feels as though he's got personal agency and personal dignity. I mean, we don't want minorities to be thinking that they are individuals, do we?
No. We absolutely don't. We want minorities to believe 100% that the world is against them, and the only people that can look after them are white people. And once we realize this system and we understand it, that guilty white liberals are the answer, and that it is not in any way racist at all to look at your fellow human being and see them as somehow an underdog that you need to help just based on something as stupid as the color of their skin, the world will be a happier place, Gad, and we need to get to that place.
Now,
minorities need to accept.
Watch how someone is going to take this clip that is, yes, satirical and prepare for a new wave of hate, Laurence.
Oh, I love it.
So where are we in the GB News firing? What, I mean, yes, you're fired. Is there a lawsuit that's being mounted? Can you talk about where we are? What's the current situation?
I just sent them an email actually about 30 seconds ago, because the deadline to appeal is 5 p.m. UK time today. I've just sent them an email saying that they've fired me because, and I'm appealing against it because of sexual discrimination. Because if one of our holy 44th wave feminists had said the same about me, everyone would have laughed, which indeed they did on British TV 2 days later. They were going, I felt objectified. I felt sick.
Yes.
My
Threatened.
mental health. It's just appalling. So I'm appealing my sacking for gross misconduct, because these rules would not apply to a female in the same situation.
Do you feel that the ecosystem is potentially going to, you know, rule in your favor? I mean, I understand that there's a facetious element to what you're saying, but I mean, it is true that there is a grotesque double standard. Will people be on your side, or do you think it's a losing battle?
Nothing is a losing battle in the march towards progressivism, and I will fight tooth and nail for absolute equity between men and women. I think equity is what's required. And, you know, moving forward in campaigns, I'd like to see more female suicide, because I'd like them to get up there with the men. And, you know, I want to see women dying in war. I want to see women sewer cleaners. I want to see this happen.
Well, by the way, as you know, our both of our intellectual hero, Hillary Clinton, famously said in a speech that when men go to war and die in the thousands, if not millions, the real victim are the women that are left to mourn them. So even when men are blown up in war, the real victim of such a reality are women. That's clear.
This has been obvious to anyone with a brain for years. Hillary Clinton, peace be upon her, is one of the finest politicians that America's ever produced. You know, she had the 2016 election was robbed from her. It was definitely true. The evil tyrant Donald Trump robbed the election of her with the assistance of Russian disinformation. So hopefully her influence, which is working its way through the White House in America at the moment, will continue to bring great prosperousness to the great nation of America.
Amen. Amen. MashaAllah. All right, let's move on to another hot topic, maybe with slightly bigger geopolitical ramifications than your otherwise very tragic personal situation. Although your personal situation is a manifestation of the greater zeitgeist that we are seeing. How is it looking in terms of the safety of Jews in England these days?
Well, we've had our own Kristallnacht in North London, which tends to be the home of the Jewish community in the UK. We've had their stores vandalized and the glass broken. We've had 5,000 Hamas supporting non-assimilated British people or non-British people, who knows these days with open borders, out celebrating the appalling things that have happened in Israel. And I think the Jewish community, we've had headmasters saying, please, they've cancelled detentions in schools. They're saying, don't wear your blazers into schools. The Jewish community feel terrified in the UK. The national broadcaster, the BBC, refuses to label Hamas a terrorist organization, although our own royal family came out and called them a terrorist organization. They've been labeled by our own government as a terrorist organization, but the British Benevolent Bullshit Corporation have decided that, you know, in the interest of balance, that they're not going to say that those who rape and murder women and children are terrorists. So it's a very, very bad time to be a British Jew, I would say, at the moment. But we're grateful to the Football Association, peace be upon it, for having put every single flag they could possibly put on the famous Wembley arches. You know, I know you love football. They put the LGBTQ flag, they put the Ukrainian flag, but they're not going to put the Israeli flag on the arches.
Yes, and also, I mean, you have to. I think you're being unfair to them in that they do perform the kneeling ritual, which I found to be very, powerful and moving and changing the needle of people's hearts. So there's that at least.
Oh, and to know, having seen the wonderful outpourings from Black Lives Matter Chicago, which moved me so much, to see the paragliding terrorists just before they went to massacre innocent people dancing at a party, for Black Lives Matter Chicago to say that, and to know that these people earning tiny amounts of money, like £250,000 a week, they have nothing, these footballers, to know that they're kneeling to that Marxist, racist organization must give us hope that the footballers will lead us out of this problem.
I'm slightly feeling aggrieved by the fact that you are as sarcastic as I am. I don't appreciate that. I need to always be the king of sarcasm in any room. Well done, Mr. Fox. But okay, but speaking of which, by the way, but in all seriousness, this is going to get serious really quickly. Your point about, not the Brits, not where I saw the tweet by J.K. Rowling where she put a little news clip, of, please don't wear Star of David if you're Jewish or other Jewish accoutrements. And so I just put out a short 1-minute clip on my Twitter feed where I read from very early in my book, in the Parasitic Mind, where I tell the story of, as we were escaping Lebanon, during the first year of the Civil War in the mid-70s, and the captain of the plane announced that we were now out of Lebanese airspace. My mother took out a pendant and said, you could now wear this proudly and you don't have to hide your identity. Now imagine 45 plus years later, I look at my children in Montreal, Canada, and I say to them the exact opposite of what my mother told me. Are you sure you want to wear that Star of David at the soccer field today, son? And so I don't think there's anything that can probably capture how poignant the moment is than that, right? I mean, 1975, wear the Star of David as you leave Lebanon. 2023, don't wear Star of David in London. Don't wear it in Montreal. Could we ever get out of this mess, Laurence?
It doesn't seem to be going to happen in a rush. This idea that we've got a real problem, as you say in your book, and as people have noticed, we've got a real problem with that. 1 second, guys. One of my dogs is on heat, and the other one's just chasing around. Go to your basket. Go to your basket. We've got a major problem in this country with the use of language. So we've called everyone racist fascists for the last 5 or 6 years, and therefore we've run out of words to describe actual atrocity. We don't know what to call it anymore. So what happens is those that have been calling everyone racist fascist for the last 5 years don't know what to say when something genuinely horrendous happens. So you lose all the nuance in it. And I think that, of course, what in the real world, we would be saying we utterly condemn what Hamas have done, and we mourn completely the loss of innocent Palestinian life, the children that will die as a result of this. And that's not really a moral equivalence or a taking of a side. It's saying actions have reactions, don't they? And in this case, justifiable ones. I don't know how, in the situation, if I was put in that situation, I would have the fury of Ben Shapiro that he does. I don't think, in a world where identity is more important than personality and reality, all we're going to do is create more tribes to attack. And we're noticing a massive rise in anti-Semitism. We're about to have a Labour government elected into the UK, which is riddled with anti-Semitism. So, it's one of the few things you're allowed to be nowadays, is an anti-Semite. I even heard some guy trying to explain that, calling it an anti-Semite was wrong because the Semites are from across all different parts of that area of the world. And I'm like, you know what we're talking about, man. Please try to stop doing this. And I'm not a geopolitical expert. I don't know the ins and outs of the Israeli-Palestine situation. What I do know is that if people are dancing at a party, you don't go in and rape and massacre them. I know that's terrorism. So in the UK, I think there's tacit support for what has gone on, as we've seen on the street. And I think in terms of the response from our political class, I think it's, it wouldn't make me feel particularly safe and confident. I wouldn't feel like, oh yeah, really, people are behind us here. And as you see with the Football Association, but you know why the Football Association don't want to put the Jewish flag up? Because huge swathes of London would descend on that football stadium. That's what
Incredible.
would happen.
You know, I mean, I'm by disposition, Lawrence, I'm an optimistic person. I have a sunny disposition. I like to see levity even in very serious situations, hence why we were going back and forth, you and I, trying to mock some of the lunacy. But the reality is it's difficult at times to find any silver linings, any optimism, because, you know, frankly, what I see is an irrevocable decline of the West, because there are certain things that have been taken out of the proverbial, you know, the cat is out of the bag, that it would take unbelievably bold measures to reverse. Is it, do you have any optimism, or do you share, in this case, my pessimism? Where are you on that continuum?
Well, I you know, the second half of the Eva Evans story was on Tuesday morning. I had 6 policemen walk into my house, barrel through my front door, and arrest me. So I think the message is being sent to those who wish to live in hope, which I think is what God commands us to do. You know, trust in me with all your heart and all of this sort of stuff. Is the message is being sent by the progressives that, you know, if you won't shut up, if you don't stop talking about this stuff, you're going to end up in jail. And that's a worrying development for the United Kingdom, particularly because we have no free speech defense in this country at all, and we have an awful lot of laws not being applied in the same way. So I suppose if we're trying to break down the metrics of which you could measure how healthy a society is, the presumption of innocence, that's gone in the United Kingdom. That's finished. Free speech, gone. And equal application of the law, gone. So, and when you vote for the political parties, you're essentially voting for exactly the same Aztec sun-worshipping lunatic, you know, kind of old school weirdos. And the media will parrot exactly the same line, to the point where they won't even condemn pure nihilistic carnage. So my optimism is that at some point the British people, this so-called silent majority, who are silent for a reason because they see what happens to people who actually speak out, will say enough is enough. But identity politics is destroying our country. It's making a nation of victims, and you know, no one needs to live in a state of victimhood. But my optimism is that every time they've tried this, they've lost. They always overreach. I do have faith, so I believe that God is on our side, and that he doesn't want people to hate each other and murder each other and kill each other and find division in each other. So I think there's hope in the long run. I just don't know how quickly we can turn this around. You just have to look at the reading materials I get sent from my son's school, the stuff that they talk about, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, the Black History Months, the Pride Months, the white privilege, all of this stuff. You're going, hang on, these guys are 20 years ahead of us. And as much as I hate what they stand for, because I think it is pure nihilism, I admire the hell out of them for how good they are at it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, you know, I often, when I'm delivering a lecture in my consumer behavior class, and at one point I talk about the ethics of marketing to children, advertising to children, I say that, you know, usually the psychological explanation for when you should be allowed or not allowed to target children is a function of whether they have reached the cognitive developmental stage to be able to mount a cognitive defense against your persuasion strategy, right? So the advertiser is trying to get me to buy this cereal or this chewing gum. And as long as I'm aware that that's what he's doing, I can then develop a counter argument point. And so we can debate as to whether that happens when the child is 8 or 6 or 12. But how hypocritical is it that on the one hand, from this side of our mouth, we say, hey, advertisers, you can't target children and sell them cereals. They're simply too fragile and young to be able to understand what you're trying to do to them. But then from this side of the mouth, we can teach them about, you know, queer, whatever theory and, you know, twerking drag queens when they're 5 and 6, because we want to teach them how to be tolerant. You can't really square that circle, can you?
No, but I don't think they care that they can't square the circle, because nihilism is not reasonable or rational. It's about the here and the now and grabbing power. It has no meaning to it. If it had meaning to it, I think the reason why it bothers people who work in the common sense area of their mind is that they need things to make sense. Whereas the nihilists, the wokists, whatever we call them, these parasitically minded people, they don't care. It doesn't bother them. They don't care that they're inconsistent. They don't care that they can turn around, and they're clever too. So you just had, I think today, either in Canada or maybe it was Scotland in the UK, they've changed the law of when a mind, as you were talking about, is developed enough to take responsibility for something. So a rapist has just been let out of jail because apparently at 25 he didn't know what he was doing.
It's funny. I've actually used that exact argument when I talk about the inconsistency of the age and cognitive development. So if a child is 17 years old, 364 days, therefore he's not yet 18. If he takes out an insurance policy against his parents, lies in wait, then kills them to collect the insurance money, then the progressives come out and say, he's 17 years old, 364 days. He's a child. His prefrontal cortex won't develop until he's 25. He didn't know that that was wrong. But at the same time, if you are 4 years old and you say, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl, believe that child is ready to get that castration done, because we have to believe them. Makes perfect sense.
It does. I bet, but again, your bigotry is on show again, because I find it so upsetting that why would you stand against gender affirming care for children? I just don't, I can't see, why anyone other than a total bigot would not believe that the removing of genitals for someone who may or may not be mentally ill would be the first place to affirm their healthcare, right? If you've got something wrong going on in your mind and you're a bit worried about your identity, the
Take
most
off the balls.
important thing, take off the balls, commit irreversible medical mutilation. And for you to try and present any kind of rational argument for that not being a good idea, I would imagine you'd struggle with.
If I had my whip of self-disgust readily available, I would start self-flagellating, but I'll leave that for another time. All right. Anything else that is, I mean, we have enough to upset us, but what are some other issues that are pissing the hell out of Laurence Fox?
I think we have a major problem with the police in this country. I think what you want in society is as much stability as possible. And what we've noticed is we've had so much that we've become affluent and leisurely and lazy, and we've created outrage mobs and all of this sort of stuff. But we have a major problem with the police, who are going to send 6 people through my front door to arrest me for criticizing what are the words I can't say as part of my bail conditions, for criticizing some climate scam bollocks, for want of a better way of putting it. They'll send 6 through my door. But if you lie on the street and glue yourself to the street in this country, they'll give you water and a hug, while people's ambulances can't get to hospital and people die. And what you're noticing is that once trust in the police is reduced, then general societal safety is undermined. So we need to return to some seriously objective policing without fear or favor. It's different in the UK as it is to the States, and I don't know about Canada, what he's done with the guns, that crazy lunatic.
No,
but
we're like you guys.
It's by consent. The police police us by consent, and we're starting to not consent to them policing us, and that's not good. That's the breakdown of law and order, and the breakdown of law and order leads to some seriously bad things. But at the end of the day, Gad, all of the things that I've said, some of them really in quite a hard way, and I do take responsibility for being a bit full on about these things. They've all come true. So if what I anticipate is going to comes true, which is there's going to be people are just going to get fed up after a while, and they're going to turn around, and there will be mass civil disobedience, and there will be stuff like that, then more innocent people are going to end up injured, hurt, dead, because our government wouldn't stand up and do its job, which is to serve the people, not an ideology.
What do you think? So, I speak to many people on my show who are avowed, committed honey badgers. And I'm always, as someone who studies psychology, who studies behavioral sciences, who lectures on personality differences, what do you think, I mean, if there was a way for us to create a bottle that you can spray on people to help them find their testicles, help them find their spine, is there such a thing, or is that something in your view you're either born with it or not? Lawrence Fox has always been irreverent to bullshit. He's always fought this. Or is this something that you can help people develop? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we should learn from our betters, the progressives. So what the progressives do is they're very well organized. It doesn't matter if you're weak. There are several strong ones. What they do is they say it doesn't matter if you're weak. We've got you. You will come with us. And so they gather in a much bigger group. What we do is we're all so entrepreneurial that we just look out for ourselves. I think we have to make, it's like old John Wayne films. You know, they weren't made because everyone cared about Westerns particularly. They were made because they were built to support and uphold the society within which they were trying to celebrate. And the media was used to uphold that society. Now everything is being used to dismantle it. So I would say what we need to do is make great, strong women who also maybe want to be mothers after, you know, I have people in my own family who took a bit of time to get their kids up and running, and then they went back to work, and they went back stronger and better. I think we need to make the idea of having a family a great thing again. I mean, that's the best revolution. We need to make the idea of non-feminized men okay, not a toxic idea. And we just keep, I think, ultimately leading by example. And we'll see, you find out. But, you know, it is pretty tragic that the only person who had any balls at all was Calvin Robinson. And look what happened to him. So the right needs to stop, well, if it's the right, it's not, I don't think it is the right. But the common sense people need to stop cancelling themselves, would be a good start,
Yeah.
and start standing up for each other. But we you know, I no one said it was going to be easy, did they?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Speaking of, you know, promoting what should be very obvious to most people, we're a sexually reproducing species, so having families should be an inherent, indelible part of our human nature. I was recently, I was honored to be invited to Hungary to speak at, I think it was the fifth edition of the, I think it's called the Budapest Demographic Summit, where there were, you know, leading politicians from across Europe, and also, you know, academics such as myself and so on, where we were getting together to talk about the importance of certainly promoting family values, promoting the idea that humans should be interested in having babies. How tragic it is that I mean, I'm speaking here as an evolutionist, although you don't need to be an evolutionist to understand this. The two steps of life are, number one, survive, and number two, procreate. Hence the two mechanisms of Darwin: natural selection and sexual selection. And yet we have to have a summit in the West to say, hey guys, it's really important for people to make babies, otherwise our societies die. It's absolutely insane. I mean, it truly is outrageous.
Yeah, but I mean, what have they got to live for? The sun monster is going to kill us, and if the sun monster doesn't kill us, then a tidal wave is going to kill us. If a tidal wave doesn't kill us, then a pathogen is going to kill us. Human beings are the worst virus that has ever been let loose on this planet. And you know, what are we? 1.6 birth rate in the UK. We're not even, we aren't reproducing ourselves. So we're looking at the end of this. We replaced God with fear. And, you know, that's the whole thing. It's like, you know, the point of God is an outside higher authority beyond people. And that should apply to all monotheistic religions, really. But we've lost confidence in ours, and we've been taught to. They're so brilliant. They're so clever. What they've done is we've got two generations in Britain of apologists and appeasers. That's what we've been built. Apologize for slavery, apologize for colonialism, apologize. And it's like, they said sorry. Now they're all dead. Can we start afresh in a genuinely progressive society? But no, there's still more white privilege that needs to be wrung out of someone, and white tears that need to be cried before we can move forward. But it won't last forever, because people hate misery, man. They want to laugh. They do. But at some point, people are it'll be comedy that kills this. And that's why I think why they went after me so much after the Abe Evans comment, because I was just going, who'd want to shag that? And, you know, I think men up and down the country who have shagged one of them are sat there going, oh God, not me. And it's like, no, we've got to wipe that one out. We've got to obliterate it. But until our own side starts standing up, until we start to see some, you know, rational well thought through arguments surviving, then we are the slaves to our woke masters.
Yeah, so two quick points. Of course, I wholeheartedly agree with you about the importance of humor and play. Uh, I use that within my arsenal of persuasion tactics, partly because it's just my nature to be playful and to play and to be irreverent using sarcasm and satire. But also, I think it's because it's an incredibly powerful tool to to attack and mock stupidity, right? I mean, in the parasitic mind, I basically argue that satire is akin to the surgeon's scalpel cutting through warm butter, right? And that's why dictators, usually when they're trying to get rid of the most dangerous people, within their ecosystem, they don't get rid of the guys with the biggest muscles. Those are easy to handle. They get rid of the satirists. They get rid of the guys with the sharp pens, with the sharp tongues. They are the ones that I need to get rid of because they stand to mock me out of existence. And so I wholeheartedly agree with you on that point. Secondly, when you mention about, fear and misery of the progressives, and this is not to frivolously, plug my books, but I talk about these things. So in my latest book, in the happiness book, I have a small section where I discuss why it is that the scientific research has repeatedly found that conservatives tend to be, on average, happier than the ultra, the progressives and so on. And I offer a speculative explanation, although I think it's quite plausible one, and I'd love to get your feedback on it. I argue that by the very nature of the word conservative, you wake up in the morning thinking that there are foundational values that are worth conserving, right? And therefore, I wake up with an existential sense of hope. Yes, I mean, yes, there are things that we can improve in our society. Always, no society is perfect. But I wake up thinking, hey, presumption of innocence, freedom of speech, those are, equality under the law. Oh, wow, those are good things. Let's keep fighting for those. The progressive, on the other hand, wakes up and says, this is a horrible system. This is racist, misogynistic, Islamophobic, transphobic, climate extremism. So around the corner lies unicornia, but I need to burn down the current system in order to get to the promised land. And therefore, by definition, I'm going to be existentially gloomy. What do you think of that theory?
Yeah, I think I feel exactly what you're saying. I suppose the way I would manifest it in my own head is that somebody who is a conservative believes that their children have a future, and that future means something. And therefore, whatever they learnt from their parents, they dilute out some of the stuff which wasn't so helpful, and they refine the message and they pass it on to their children because they believe in the continuity of life. Whereas I think what progressives do is they want to mend today totally and immediately without really thinking about what needs to be mended and what the value of conservatism is. Now, progressivism is great. If the world was run by conservatives, there would be no equality under the law for gay and lesbian people. There just wouldn't. They would have said no. So progressivism has its place and conservatism has its place. But the most important thing is the tension between the two. And seeing as we have no tension anymore, it's like a tug of war where everyone is on the same side pulling an empty piece of rope, and it doesn't help society. So what I think we're like the rock and rollers, the conservatives now. We're like going, come on guys, let's fight for really rock and roll hardcore things like belief that nice buildings should be maintained and statues shouldn't be torn down and books shouldn't be rewritten. We need to make that cool. But I hate the progressive mindset so much, but I just admire them. I admire them. I just think, God, you're so good at this. Why can't we be as good as you at it? Because they are winning. And I think when they did this on the BBC, they said 3 days later, they said the same joke to really objectify and harm my very sensitive soul. When they did this, that was them signaling to the public, A, we've won, and B, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah,
because and that to me is spooky.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Are there in the British ecosystem, I mean, yes, I know of a few voices, but is there a movement of, counter wokist folks that are starting to band together? I mean, yes, I know the folks from trigonometry are doing their bit within that ecosystem. Nigel Farage does his thing, you do your thing. Is there a coming of minds so that, to your earlier point, how progressives are so organized, that a similar movement is happening within the less woke folks?
I don't think so, because one of the great things of the unwoke is that everyone wants to be in charge of that movement, whereas the wokies, they're happy to work in solidarity with each
Yes.
other. So they don't care who's in charge. It's just like, we just got to get the cause through. Whereas on our side, everyone wants to be in charge. You've seen, like, I mean, I've never been thrown under the bus by so many people as I was by the so-called home of free speech, GB News. So I don't know. I look at Calvin and I go, Calvin is a great leader. I look at some of the work that people like Toby Young does, but there's not many people I would really trust with this, with getting us out of this, except God. Sorry to be old fashioned.
How about in academia? I mean, I remember in the old day, well, old, not old days, but let's call it before he passed away, Roger Scruton would have been someone that we can say, okay, this is a very serious academic with a lot of academic gravitas, who's at least serving as a counterweight to some of the craziness. Is there another person that we can look to within the British academic ecosystem that could potentially replace or has replaced someone like Roger Scruton?
Well, there's Lord Jonathan Sumption, who is is very liberal, but brilliantly liberal in the traditional sense or the classical sense. And then there's people like Douglas Murray, but Douglas is called a racist just for saying that, there's maybe 600,000 immigrants onto a tiny island every year might not be a great idea, and we should banish those that have ideologies and desires to destroy a country from living there. So I think the progressives are ahead of us. They go, the minute you start making a decent noise, they turn you into Satan, and then the media turn you into Satan as well, and you become an outcast. So I think Douglas is great. I think Jonathan Sumption is fantastic. I think a lot of the rest straddle the fence of truth. And they do that because they have the noble cause of trying to engage with progressives who tend not to want to engage with them anyway, unless it's for clicks. But I think that we've got it's a parallel ecosystem. That's what you got to build. You've got to go, look, ours is more fun than yours. People are smiling and having a laugh, and then get people to come over. But there's some great thinkers in this country, and we're very lucky. But we're, as I said at the beginning, we're not protected in the way that America is. We don't have a First or a Second Amendment, and we'll probably find that is not a good thing come the next few years.
Are there any projects that you are currently working on, whether it be in your acting career, your political career, whether it be in your media, career, that you'd like to share with us here and now?
Yeah, we're going to take the Department of Education to court for non-contact sexual abuse of children by allowing this horrible stuff that they teach in schools, the gender ideology that they teach in schools, teaching kids that they can be born in the wrong body and all the social transitioning stuff. So we'll be taking them on behalf of an ever-growing number of families now whose young people, tragic stories of young people who've been put through these very drastic permanent life-changing situations. And we're going to take the government and Department of Education to court because this is as far as we're concerned, it's non-contact child abuse. That's what they've done.
Wow. Any thoughts about becoming author Laurence Fox and writing a book of some of your trials and tribulations?
Yes, and also I have a film which I'm going to write when I go away. I've got a film about a man who refuses to speak, and everyone just takes their own aggro out on him. And I think it's very pertinent for now. So I'm going to be stuck in front of my computer. All I got to do though is I got to ask the nice policeman, "Can I have my computer back?"
Laurence, if I come, well, not if, when hopefully I come next to England, can I presume that you will be inviting me to some London derby match to watch together, because I've never been to a Premier game?
Well, first we'll go on an anti-Israel march.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry. And then straight after we'll go to the football. But we're going to need to, when you come, it's important that as you go through the airport, you find some Jews to spit at, because it's important.
And I would argue that we can both agree that we should not be supporting disgusting Tottenham Hotspur because they are like the Jewish club of London, correct?
Yes, I mean, how they're allowed to play football
is
with a
disgusting. I
Jew
hear you.
with a Jewish owner and Jewish fans. I mean, have we learned nothing from the last few days of demonstrations? They should close the stadium, turn it into a mosque. Everyone will be happy.
Inshallah, inshallah. Laurence, you are such a delight. Your mind is sharp. Your tongue is spicy. You're a guy after my own heart. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay on the line so we could say goodbye offline. Very much appreciate you coming on the show.
Love you, brother.
Yeah, likewise. Cheers.